Hello, welcome to another episode of Mega Manga Monday. I am Jason Hahn, and today we're talking about My Hero Academia, chapters 356 and 357. We got a lot to talk about in this chapter, so I'm not going to spend too long on the intro, but I am Jason Hahn. I'm a writer for ScreenRant.com, and I got a couple other buddies from Screen Rant to talk about the new chapters of My Hero Academia. We're all manga fans and excited to talk about it. Steven, you want to introduce yourself, man?
Yeah, I'll just say that because I'm only here for 30 minutes. My name is Steven. I write for the comic section, and I'm really excited about this chapter. Let's go.
Ben.
Yep, I'm Ben. I also write for the comic section of Screen Rant, and I'm also hyped about these two chapters because they're pretty great.
Yeah, it is fun. Carlyle.
I'm Carlyle Edmundson. I write for Screen Rant Comics as well, and boy, let's get talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was fire, there was punches, there was the biggest bad that the series has ever seen, taking a lot of hits, and then he did exactly what I needed him to do. He was just like, guys, I'm the big bad. I've got some tricks up my sleeve. and, but especially in 357, there's just the action was huge. Endeavor is just going full blast on All for One, and it's got a lot of great moments, but Steven, I know you're limited on time, so I'll let you start out, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, first of all, for 356, what I thought was actually really interesting is that just based on, this is basically a continuation of what happened in 355, when Earphone Jack was able to, get into the fight and actually, hurt All for One to some degree. Yeah. And I actually would have been fine in this chapter 356, and I'm forgetting their names, but Shadow Bird guy. I would have been completely fine if he had actually been able to take down All for One in this particular instance. Like, even though it's like one of those like shonen manga cliches where the the young heroes with no experience or less experience than the big bad are able to, win in the end. And I actually would have been completely fine if Horikoshi actually went with that in this particular chapter. Like, even though the latest, the next chapter, especially like Endeavor stepping up to the plate and taking on All for One was great and was definitely needed, I would have been completely fine in this moment if the students actually had the upper hand on All for One, just because of how the quirks are rebelling against All for One. Like, it's like they're doing it, but not really. Kind of gives them that handicap type of deal that would have made it really effective. Like a fun little flip of an old cliche.
I know, as much as I loved that hit, that the Ragnarok fist that he got All for One with, I thought that was really cool. But if that would have been the thing to like be the final hit against him, I would have felt that would have been really cheap and almost unearned, because All for One is just so talked up as, I just love him as a villain. I would have been pretty bummed if that was the thing that took him down. But I did love that All for One was just like, oh man, I needed to avoid getting hit by that by all costs, and I didn't. So, he was even giving the credit for it, and it definitely had the importance, but I would have been personally very disappointed if that's the thing that took him down.
But if he got taken down, then we can get quicker to Toga, which I...
That's true.
Just get rid of him. Go.
But I feel like All for One's sort of upgrade or promise of leveling up here has just made this fight so much more interesting to me now, because up to this point it was like, okay, this is interesting. We've got to see All for One in action here. But let's just take him down to get to the characters we have more of a connection with. But I think these last two chapters in particular really just made this fight like, ooh, okay, I really want to see what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Well, because without Deku, this is like one of the final, big battles that we've been honestly waiting for a long time. I'd say even as soon as we learned that All for One survived United States of Smash to the face, and Endeavor became number one, that almost became like okay, well, now Endeavor is going to have to live up to the expectations he's always had on himself to surpass All Might, to eventually fight the world's most dangerous villain. And yeah, I feel like if the Ragnarok Fist knocked out All for One, then all of that just it would have subverted expectations in a way I really didn't want. So I'm glad that both All for One and Endeavor are putting out all the stops. And
to the point where Endeavor's facial fire is gone. He's putting it into his punches and stuff now.
facial fire. Oh, jeez.
I like that.
That's a category I've looked up online once or twice. But the the attacks that Endeavor was launching, I'm glad that we got to see some new ones. It's not all just prominence burn, which just felt like the only thing he kind of had in his belt. But I love that we even got like fire laser eyes in 357, which I thought was awesome.
The side laser eyes. Like,
Yeah.
I had to,
How do you
because
hate
I didn't
that?
know that's what was happening, and I was reading ahead. I'm like, oh wait, those actually were lasers coming from his eyes. They were just going at an angle. Holy crap!
Yeah. I was reading it while I was enjoying a morning bagel, and I was just like, I had to do almost a triple take because I thought it was just he's like dragging All for One along the continent, and I was wondering if it was just like them doing that to show how fast he's moving. But then the next couple panels are like him actively destroying All for One's hand that is trying to ruin whatever he's doing. But
And that whole scene was great too. Just like you shouldn't. I forgot what he said because I'm looking at 356 right now. But like just his comment about getting rid of that hand that's hurt so many people. That was a great moment. Great moment.
yeah, these are all the moments I feel we needed. So I'm glad that All for One is still kicking. But
That is very true. Yeah.
Carlyle, what'd you think about these ones, man?
Yeah, this is pretty much the total admission of everything that we had been waiting for Endeavor to do. So it's good that he could do that even with All for One. Just yeah, maybe I've done some villain stuff too, but I can do I can do the right thing here and now, and hopefully that's something.
Yeah, and I feel like Endeavor kind of just, set it all out as plainly as possible, just saying like Toya is the product of his errors, and all the lives that Toya has taken down are kind of on him, and it's really just flat out him saying, I hate myself for everything that I've done. Like
That's his superpower, hating himself.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally his superpower.
Yeah, clearly from 356, that's him overcoming his weakness. His weakness is the only thing that makes him strong.
Yeah. Man
hates
too
it so
angry
much.
to die.
Yeah, basically.
And yeah, I think I almost feel like this is everything Endeavor needed to do. So I'm kind of afraid if he's not going to survive whatever this ace up the sleeve Endeavor's got, unless this is the destruction of this vessel of All for One, and he's somehow about to manifest in front of Deku, or whatever they're kind of teasing at the end of 357. It was so vague.
Scary, man. He's back.
Yeah, that little capsule that takes away people's quirks and a picture of Eri were flashed, and so it's terrifying. Like if All for One was able to get a hold of Eri's power, that would just be the end, in my opinion. Like even more so than Deku. Like if All for One had the ability to just straight up take away people's quirks, without them being able to, or revert them to just whatever. I feel like Eri's ability is way more OP, one of the most OP powers in the entire thing, and
Or he could even use her power like somehow to restore his body to how it was before, because that's like the main way of how it was used. Like his overhaul was using it to get rid of quirks and stuff. But yeah, I mean, just on that topic, like I thought that was, except for the later arcs, delving into all of the League of Villain characters, which was probably like the highlight of the series for me. But that whole thing with Overhaul and Eri was insanely powerful. Like I'd say that's probably my second favorite bit in this whole series, just because that whole thing of just taking a child and doing all these horrible things, like manipulating them, creating this crazy Stockholm syndrome,
Hmm.
and utilizing her power. Like, and the fact that this could be bringing that back to some degree is tragic, but at the same time, incredible writing. And I am very excited to see where that goes in the next chapters for sure.
But it's
Yeah.
also like she doesn't really like having this power. It's so difficult to
Yeah.
control. Maybe having it taken away is a good thing as long as it doesn't end up in All for One's hands.
Yeah, that's true. And
Yeah.
I kind of feel like her
I like
power.
that reading.
Yeah, I agree that I'm sure she would enjoy that, but I kind of feel like her being tutored by Miario and Eraser have kind of helped her come to terms with her power and hopefully even control it a little bit better. But I mean, no doubt that she was traumatized by having this power, because I mean, she withstood who knows how long she was with Overhaul, and he definitely did not make her happy to have that power. So,
And yeah, and we haven't seen her like since I think the last time we saw her was during the school festival performance, where the class 1A's performance, put a smile to her face. Like
mhm.
I think we might have seen her one time after that, but
Yeah,
it's just her relationship with Deku and just her whole journey. Like she needed to come back. Like it was one of those things in the back of my mind. It's like I really hope we get to see her again, just
mhm.
because there's so much unresolved stuff about her. So I'm very excited. I'm very happy Horikoshi is taking this particular angle. And
Yeah,
then, like I said, I really really love Carlyle's reading about. Like, yeah, she's probably gotten a way to deal with her power, but at the same time, losing it would you know have a profound effect on her, and that would be great to see as well.
mhm.
Whatever happens, but I do like that take.
I feel like she's been in kind of background panels. She's just never really been the focus since the sports festival. But we do know that she is starting to get a little bit more control of her powers, because one of my favorite moments of the next arc that's about to be animated was when one of my favorite characters in the entire series is Miario. I'm probably saying
Mm.
his name wrong, but
Aereo?
Mirio or
Like Lemillion?
Lemillion,
Yeah,
yes.
Lemillion,
There we go.
yeah.
I was struggling to remember his hero name. That's so much easier for me to say.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Lemillion fan, and when he showed up at the end of that last arc, I literally like jumped out of my chair and was cheering, like, because him getting his quirk taken away and just the kind of the tease on how he's taking care of her. I'm just like, oh well, she's got to eventually fix him, right? And to have him get fixed off screen and then show up at the best moment in that fight, just oh boy, my hair's standing up just thinking about it. But
Well,
I'm it's I almost feel like that was set up to show us that yeah, somebody can be restored back to their prime. And most interesting dramatic thing that could happen from that is yeah, All for One getting completely restored to prime All for One, which would be terrifying.
yeah, actually, I don't want to get too far off topic, but like you're talking about Lemillion, even though like him losing his power, like definitely, shaped him as a character. Really
Oh yeah.
changed his trajectory. I really enjoyed that tension that was being created between him and Deku.
Hmm.
And that's kind of been lost. Like that whole thing, especially with Best Jeanist, I believe it was. Like just no, was it? I don't know. About how Lemillion was supposed to be like the All
He was
Might's
yeah.
successor.
He was supposed
And
to be
it was that whole dynamic of like, and later on, like we learned that Deku was perfect because he didn't have a quirk himself, so he didn't have that overflowing cup thing with the quirks, so that he can control more quirks. But it was a great turn for him when he lost his power, but at the same time, I was kind of disappointed, and still am to a degree, just because he did have to take a back seat because of that. And yeah, I just wanted to say that. Like I didn't want to take this conversation too off topic, but that's something that has been bumming me out a bit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I kind of feel like that might have been why Bakugo wasn't really prominent in that arc, because it gave Deku and Lemillion their time to build up their tension and drama.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like after Lemillion kind of went to the sidelines, then it kind of gave them the chance to focus more on Deku and Bakugo's relationship, because I feel like that's kind of a similar drama there.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it because that right after that was when Bakugo made the stunning confession and apology.
Yeah, we got there round 2. Oh man, that was a great scene in the anime too. But I one panel that really I think my favorite panel at 357 was after All For One took the hit and then announces, "What made you think that I wasn't prepared for this?" Something along those lines. And he has like an eye like spawn, which we've never seen All For One with an eye before. So I'm almost wondering, do they almost have like a power like Ares already, like in a vial, and he injected himself with it, maybe, because he's regenerated an eye essentially.
I'm not sure if it's...
What's your readings?
I think it's just creepy to look creepy, because it's really creepy to see his burned up face with this eye in it.
Very creepy.
And like the top of his face, it's unclear like what exactly that is. Whether it's just like burn tissue covering everything up, or if it's like a maskish sort of thing. So like the way I interpret it is that his eyes are like under there.
Oh, okay.
But he just doesn't use them. But since his whole body was like burned up now that's sort of burned away and enabled them to open. But it could just be the creep factor as well.
Yeah, before he just kind of like had all scar tissue for a face. I doubt there was an eye under the scar tissue, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think we'll need more.
Yeah, we'll find out next chapter probably what.
Probably.
Exactly. Unless it
focus on Deku.
Yeah, and it's like he's like, "What's that?" And we find out what's that. Cut away from this fight entirely, and we
can only
revisit.
Hope. Yeah. It
would be a real Madara moment from Naruto, where like, cut away from the fight, and then All For One shows up later and is like, "Yeah, I beat all those guys," you know.
Oh, you used my line.
I know.
You know what I'm talking about now.
I had to sneak in there with that. I've read that.
Oh man, what a cool moment that was too. Right. I'm a big Naruto fan, so anytime somebody says that, I'm just like, oh, they know the thing. But back to My Hero, kind of during Endeavor's like declaration and him kind of just laying it all out, like his acceptance of everything he's done wrong, we got kind of a panel that almost looks like a look into the future. Like it almost looks like a more grown-up version of Todoroki walking towards his classmates. It just, the way it was drawn, it looks like it's like a few years older than we've seen any of these characters. And I
agree. I thought I was looking too much into it myself. I remember seeing that. I'm like, that's interesting, but then read on. But yeah, right. I do see what you're saying though. Yeah, he does look older. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like Endeavor's imagining of the future in that moment.
But to kind of take a step back, just because I'm leaving soon, like something I liked about 356 was actually it was just one panel, probably reading too much into it. But during that whole thing when he's like wrestling with like his inner demons, like his younger self, Endeavor, I mean, at one point, because that younger version of Endeavor is tearing him down with like all of his insecurities about himself. Right. And what's really insane, what I like, was when Endeavor is pulling himself up like to the part of him that's mocking and ridiculing him, is that's right, you'll never be All Might or Deku. Mm-hmm. Like that to me was a massive moment, just because Deku is pretty much the successor of All Might, but he's never had that justification. Like, even though he has all of these extra quirks now, like there's never that thing that he could actually be the next All Might yet, just because the next All Might is someone, who can, bring hope to the hopeless and make, anyone, no matter what their situation is, smile in the darkest of times. Like, he hasn't gotten there yet, obviously, but like the fact that like Endeavor's, the part of him that's mocking him is putting Deku in the same character in the same breath as All Might, like really elevates Deku to the point where in Endeavor's mind he is basically seeing him already as All Might's successor.
He's accepted
and
it.
I thought that was actually like it was phenomenal that moment. Like it's just one little panel, and I just thought that was really well done, without going all into it. Like that's all that needed to be said to really show that part of Endeavor. I love that.
Yeah, I love that too, and it's something that I feel like needed to happen. So it's just kind of giving me more fuel to the fire that I think this might be it for Endeavor. Like as much as we would love to have a final interaction between him and Toya, I feel like, especially with the chapter having him display everything that he's needed to say, I feel like this is like the perfect setup for his death.
And also too, like these past few chapters, like I mean, I was like one of the people who originally was like, man, this is getting in the way of him and Toya, but like these past chapters have really, shown Endeavor wrestling with, how he's been dealing with Toya, like even though it's not in the main translation, but like, calling him my boys type of deal. Like this is like a side of Endeavor that he wouldn't have been able to do if he were meeting Toya face to face. Like this is like him secluded or separated from Toya and having to deal with all of these struggles on his own. So, which makes it much more impactful actually. And so I'm really excited that, if his end is coming, which I hope it is, like I agree with you completely. Like if he has one, just needs one more moment, one more intense moment, like we saw with, my boys type of deal. Like that will make me so happy if that happens. And these past few chapters are making it seem like that is very much the case. So I'm just glad. Like I was just originally like, oh man, Horikoshi's just rushing through all this, and it seemed like, and while that might be true, at the same time we're still getting these amazing moments that are probably better than how we imagined them, which is always great when that happens.
Yeah. It's kind of giving me faith that all the things we feel like this series needs to do before it ends, it's giving me more hope that that's going to happen. Because in a lot of our previous discussions, we've brought up a lot of things that we feel like this story still needs to cover. And if this story only has 20 or 30 chapters left, we're afraid that it might not get there. But this chapter, for me, proved that Horikoshi might know what he's doing when telling this story. Like, as much as a lot of it has felt really rushed, and a lot of the moments kind of felt unearned sometimes throughout the series, it's that this chapter was everything I needed it to be, and it's given me more hope that. I again, I'm completely shocked that if this is going to end this year, I don't believe it.
and also too, it just really gives faith. Like I was already expecting like the whole Toga and Uraraka, like their whole fight together. Like I was already expecting that to be monumental. Like that's like the thing that I've been wanting more than Endeavor and Toya getting together. Like just the whole Ochako and Toga thing, like what's happening now is like, oh man, this next fight with Toga and Ochako is gonna be off the rails. Like my expectations are now so incredibly high that I'm just it's a great feeling to have, just because I haven't had it for a long time with my hero. So I'm just very, very happy right now.
Yeah, I agree, man. How about you, Ben? What are your thoughts on how things are going along?
Honestly, I'm with you too. I mean, it's just the hype train here. Like this is the best I felt about My Hero in a long time.
Yeah,
like
same.
I think Dabi versus Todoroki was something necessary that had to happen that everyone was looking forward to. But as it was going on, it was like, it was cool. I enjoyed it, but I was just kind of like, you know, like it's pretty much going how we expected it to go the whole time, and like it's fine, but it seems like it's sort of going through the motions just to get it done before the end of the series. Whereas this fight has just been incredible and very unpredictable. It's unsure what's going to happen exactly, and I think part of that's because like Endeavor is a character who's by no means safe. Like Endeavor could die, and has in fact been raising death flags this entire fight.
Yeah.
So, and now All For One's got this new power that's coming up. Like, it could really go anywhere, and it's really exciting to me. And it's sort of brought back a lot of my love for this series, and a lot of my excitement for it too.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I just, as much damage as this version of All For One has taken, I'm not sure. I feel like this fight could either be completely done, but I mean, it's been established that All For One has, put his quirk in other people, obviously Shigaraki. But I feel like throughout the series, especially from what Carlyle's told us about Vigilantes as well, that I feel like there might be other people who could, or other, maybe a Nomu, that could serve as an extra vessel for All For One. He almost seems like the type of manipulative genius who wouldn't put all of his cards in just Shigaraki. So I'm curious if we have another one, but yeah, Carlyle, would you have?
I just gotta go. I'm going right now. Sorry, but bye guys. Have fun, guys.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Steven. Check out Steven's stuff on Screen Rant. He writes some pretty good stuff. So.
Bye. Have fun, gentlemen.
Later.
Wow.
Yes, my first thought was that these things flying on the horizon probably were or are Nomu. And we do know that the original idea behind building the Nomu was to create artificial bodies for All For One. So it does seem likely that these might be like little Nomu that have weird fragments of All For One in them. And they're making me think of the Cell Juniors. Or you remember?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I would love All For One Juniors.
Well, the only issue with that is that I think if that's the case, the next couple chapters will just be Deku fighting them.
Yeah, which I mean, he's fighting them in the middle of the ocean. Like, he doesn't have a lot of ground or much.
It would be cool to see.
Yeah,
it'd be like a chase scene, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, which would be neat, but also like I find Deku to be the least compelling character in the cast right now. I sort of want to keep focusing on this. Like Endeavor versus All For One action, or like, Emiko and Uraraka, or like, what's going on with Shigaraki and all the heroes arranged to fight him. Like, pretty much every other thread except for Deku, I would like to see.
Well, yeah, because I feel like Deku's strength of his character is his what he inspires from the others. Because like. I'm definitely very curious to see Deku fight more, but I'm more curious to see how his presence affects like Bakugo and Shigaraki and even All For One at this point. Like, because a few chapters ago when All For One or Deku like found the mansion that they thought All For One was hanging out in, and there was that TV just waiting for Deku. And All For One had a recording essentially saying like, I've realized that All For One is, or All Might is not worth checking out anymore. My main focus is you now, Deku. And then the house explodes and nobody died. So Deku by himself doesn't feel that compelling. And I feel like if we had a whole chapter of him just fighting a bunch of, characterless Nomus, it would definitely kind of sidetrack everything that's been going on. But I think especially with the first kind of manifesting and warning Deku about what's about to come, I think I anticipate it's going to be more than just some brainless no really powerful brainless nomus. Who knows? The only thing that I could think would be very, very interesting for Deku to run into is if it's a version of All for One, and we do get at least a conversation between the first and All for One. I hope that's what we come to next, because
I don't think we're ready for that quite yet. I think it's a little ways off still.
Yeah, I feel like that's gonna happen when he's fighting Shigaraki, right? And they go into like the quirk space with all
Shadow
the past. Yeah, with all the past One for Alls and like Shigaraki and All for One, who will maybe be defeated at this point, but still lingering on in Shigaraki, like, and then that's when that sort of thing will happen. I agree with Carlyle. It's not time yet. We need to. That's like near the end, I think. But yeah, I just sort of hope like Deku sees something and like either deals with it immediately or like we just cut away back to this fight or something, because I wrote an article a while ago when Deku first sort of like started heading towards Shigaraki, where I was like, basically, My Hero Academia ditching Deku for now is a very good thing, because it gives us a chance to focus on all the other characters who are much more compelling than he is. And we can just save him for the end. We don't need to keep constantly checking in on him. So I would prefer if we don't keep constantly checking in on him. But yeah, that's just my tastes on it.
Well, I kind of feel I agree for the most part. I feel like if they kept cutting away to him, it would have really slowed momentum, especially in the last couple chapters that are focused on the Endeavor fight right now. But I don't know. It kind of feels like it's giving credence to the Endeavor fight might be over for now. As I've said in every other discussion, and you even just brought it up, I think it'd be great if, we sidetracked from the Endeavor fight for a while, and maybe if we just get a couple panels of whoever Deku's about to run into, and then we jump over to possibly the Toga fight, or something like that.
I would be fine with that. What I don't want is a chapter devoted to Deku at this point.
Yeah, where they slow down in the ocean to have a big conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be the good way to do the, if they did want to do like a chase, just have like, here's a panel and be like, next chapter, here's another panel, another chapter, another panel. So like, we're checking in with him every now and then as to how this chase is going, but we're not spending a lot of time there. We can get back to the other more important things that are going on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I could see that happening. But
I hope it doesn't happen that way. But I could definitely see it happening.
Yeah, it kind of goes to the same complaint that we were just saying about how, especially in the last couple, if this last fight kept going to Deku, it would really ruin momentum. And I feel like, I'm ready to either continue to see what's going on with the Endeavor fight, because I mean, as much as I think it is done, it still would be cool to see, what's going to continue to happen there, because they've done such a great job of building up that environment and stuff. But I think, as we said, sticking with Deku just by himself right now, talking to somebody else would really slow things down. So I'm hoping that we get more prominent storytelling, or more focused storytelling like it's been doing, because as we've said, this newest chapter really brought it. But another thing this chapter really made me excited about too was All for One kind of reminiscing about his fight with All Might. Like, he even brought up that I predicted, I never thought that Endeavor would be the one to make me relive the humiliation of his defeat by by All Might. And it really got me excited. I was like, are we about to flash back to the fight that crippled All Might? Like, that's I still, that kind of gave me a little hint that we might still get that. And I know you guys have told me in previous discussions, no, we're probably not going to get that. We probably won't get the explanation of the golden baby and what happened to him. And those are just some things that I still feel like the series definitely needs to do, and them bringing up all for one, thinking about the humiliation of his major defeat. I think we might get it, guys. We didn't get it this chapter, but we might still get it.
It's one of those things that's really interesting with because like there's not really any mystery about where quirks came from in universe, and a lot of the heroes don't really seem to be invested in where that came from. But that's kind of like the core of the whole villain plan, is like researching and studying these and finding out about how they work and putting them to use as much as possible. So that's I don't know how much explanation we're going to get, but I think if we're going to get it, it's going to be coming from a bad guy. So you never know. It could trigger a flashback. We've had chapters recently even that started out with flashbacks and then came back to the modern current time period. So it's always possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is sort of a weird inversion that I never thought of. Like, and it kind of makes me wish we had seen villains in a more sympathetic light researching this stuff. Like a villain researching how to suppress or activate certain quirks to like help people, but as time went on, they had to resort to more and more immoral means of doing it or something. Or I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of fertile ground there for shades of gray.
Mm-hmm.
But
I feel like that's a great point, and that kind of makes me think of how that could have been how the Doctor started. I forget the name of the Doctor. But...
It is. That's exactly what happened. Because he's the guy who came up with the quirk doomsday theory. So he's been around almost as long as All for One, and the reason that he went to All for One is because everybody ridiculed him when he started talking about, hey, what's going to happen in 80 years when people with quirks have children with people with quirks, and everybody has quirks and they start activating at a very young age. What are we going to do as a society? And everybody said, that's stupid. We're not worried about that. And now it's a problem. It's actually, this might be a little off. I don't know if this is the intended case or not, but it kind of sounds like climate change.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the problem. Shut up, you. We don't want to deal with this problem. Okay, now what?
Yeah. It reminds me of, I saw a sign back when I think the UN put out damning evidence about climate change and how if we don't change things in the next couple decades, we're doomed. But anyway, I saw signs of people like holding up stuff in protest of like, at the beginning of every doomsday movie, there's always the scientist everyone ignores. And it's spot on. But yeah, I would love to think that we could, because it is set up that way. We've already gone to that Doctor in captivity, and he's just rambling about secrets and stuff. I forget when necessarily, which fight that was going on. It was either before
in Dabi versus Todoroki, and he was talking about Dabi.
Yeah. Yeah, so we could at any point jump back to the Doctor, who's just rambling off important lore that we are all dying to know about. But I would love it if we went back to him and he's, kind of going back to when he first started researching, and possibly he was trying to figure out the origin of quirks and how they work, and he may have had the best intentions at first, and he couldn't get an answer, or people were ignoring him so much that he his studies started to get more and more deep and more nefarious until All for One showed up. And we all know what happened after that. So,
yeah.
But that's another thing I'm really hoping, and I see that is a pretty good avenue on how they could explain really anything at this point. Just at any point in the story, we can jump back to the Doctor, and he could explain everything that we need him to. But yeah, any more thoughts on 356 or 357? Or do you guys want to throw your theories on where you hope 358 goes?
I just want to say I thought it was very funny that 356 released on Father's Day.
Yes.
Because it's about Endeavor sort of confronting himself. And 357 is arguably more about him confronting his failures as a father, but 356 is heavily about that too. So
Yeah. I appreciated that too as I was reading it, and Endeavor showed up, and I'm just like, oh, happy Father's Day, everybody. But how about you, Carlyle? Any more final thoughts on My Hero Academia?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would want to go back to is when Steve was talking about the panel with this glimpse of the future here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that he was already kind of acknowledging in his inability to measure up to Deku, but he's not seeing that for his son. He's seeing, Bakugo and Deku here are both turned around like, hey, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he's realizing that Shoto's journey to being a hero doesn't have to be quite as lonely as his was. And that's a good thing, and that's good for him, and I think he's realizing that and feeling it. Maybe that'll make it more okay for him if he knows that Shoto will be doing all right with his friends if he doesn't make it out of this fight.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to show like how much he appreciates Shoto now. Like he's realized that he was pushing him way too hard, and that he's developed into, exactly what he hoped he would. Well, now he is what Endeavor hopes he would be, because before he wanted him to be number one. He wanted him to be the one to destroy All Might, and that panel alone almost proves like he's, and all the words that he's saying around it too, of course, that it's the job of the older generation to help and set up the next. And it's kind of an idealistic idea of what he wants the future to look like. And I'll just go ahead and say it. I think Shoto looks way cooler, just a couple years older. But my favorite bit about that panel that I'm realizing too is Deku's cape looks like the same as All Might's master.
Yeah, Gran Torino. It's definitely Gran Torino's cape.
Oh no, I was thinking the lady.
Nana Shimura.
Yeah, that cape reminded me a lot more
she also
of
has
Nana.
one too.
Yeah.
yeah, and that makes sense because her and Gran Torino trained together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that theory that I feel like it still hasn't quite been disproven, that they may have been romantically involved, and that he could be Shigaraki's real grandfather.
Oh,
was a theory that I kind of was thinking of, just to show like whenever they've talked about Nana and Gran Torino knew that she had a grandson and all that stuff. It just like anytime that gets brought up, he seems to just like become incredibly sad, which, I mean, just to show how much respect he had for Nana. But I think it'd be a very interesting dynamic if they were romantically involved, and Gran Torino ends up being the grandfather of Shigaraki, who did punch him through the chest. So I don't know. It still hasn't been quite disproven, but that's just another theory that I thought would kind of heighten things there. But so I guess for next chapter, I'm hoping either it's a really good, interesting conversation Deku's about to have, or we jump into going back to the Toga fight. Because I feel like that's got to resolve before we get more into the really heavy-hitting story beats that I feel like we're getting prepared for. Because I kind of feel like, I know Steven was saying earlier that he's really excited to see that dynamic play out. I almost feel like this fight has heightened the story to a point where I'm less interested in the teenage drama love triangle storyline. So I almost feel like we need to get that out of the way before we jump into End of the World, Quark, Doomsday, All for One versus All Might, or One for All, and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, what I could see maybe happening is the chapter where, the news that Dabi was defeated and it sort of flashed all these different characters fighting and stuff. I could see maybe going into one of those fights and focusing on that for like a chapter or two, and then getting to the Toga Himiko fight, because like then the Toga Himiko fight isn't as much of a letdown after this big sort of bombastic, awesome fight.
So it's sort of like a buffer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a breather chapter, I think. That's how they usually say.
Yeah. So I almost feel like if a breather chapter is what we're getting next, then yeah, maybe we'll be like half Deku and then half it'll go to. I know before this Endeavor fight really kicked off, we got to look at like Red Riot and pretty much everybody else coming to some stadium, and a bunch of villains we've never seen before just randomly showing up, and just to kind of show that wars on all fronts. Killer, sorry?
One of those villains that showed up at that place is the person who killed Midnight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I could definitely see us going there next. But yeah, as I said, this chapter brought things to a height, and a breather is probably next. So I'm very excited to see where we go from here, because this chapter definitely got me a lot more excited for the series. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that'll about do it for this chapter, or this episode of Mega Manga Mondays for My Hero Academia. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we move into recommendations and plugs?
No,
I think we hit most of it.
All right, awesome. Yeah, that'll be this episode of Mega Manga Monday. I am Jason Hahn. Please check out other episodes of Mega Manga Monday if you are caught up and interested in series like One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, Dragon Ball Super, Boruto. We talk about a lot because we love a lot. So check us out, follow us on Twitter, and reach out to us if you'd like. We're on Twitter at @mmanga Mondays. And also check out ScreenRant.com for video game news, comic news, and movie news. We write all kinds of interesting articles and introspective and news and all kinds of stuff. So definitely check that out. Ben, any recommendations or plugs, man?
Yeah, in terms of recommendations, Disney Plus finally put the last couple episodes of Amphibia up, which is a charming animated show. If you liked Gravity Falls, you'll probably like this show. And the final season is extremely good. So if that's up your alley, check that out. And for plugs, I have a YouTube channel called YGO from Zero, where I sort of go through historical formats of the Yu-Gi-Oh card game and make videos on them. So if that's something that interests you, be sure to check that out.
Yeah, excellent. Carlyle, how about you, man?
As for recommendation, of course, anybody who's read this and hasn't read the new One Punch Man chapter needs to correct that immediately.
Oh my god.
I can't believe we're getting all these amazing fights at the same time.
Yeah. Oh boy,
it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a manga fan with One Punch Man hitting the strides where it's at right now. Yeah, I'm excited to do an episode of for One Punch Man. I don't know if we need to wait till this final conflict is over or not, but yeah, there's a fight going on in One Punch Man we've waited years for, and it is somehow beating all of our expectations too. So it's a lot of fun. Check that out.
As far as plug, my visual novel Elven Revenue service, we're still working on it. You can check it out on Twitter, Elven Revenue. I don't have any development notes to offer, but it's still moving along.
All right, absolutely. Yeah, if you're into visual novels, it's a good one. I know there's a few demos out. You can give it a try. But yeah, I think that'll about do it for Mega Manga Mondays today. It's been a lot of fun talking My Hero Academia 357 with you guys, and I look forward to the next ones.
Yeah, see y'all next time.
All right, have a good one.